They thought they were reinventing luxury. A century of British heritage deleted overnight for something called exuberant modernism. No cars, no elegance, just pink cubes, slogans, and silence. 132-second commercial. And within 5 months, European sales collapsed by 97.5%, from nearly 2,000 cars to just 49.
According to an auto industry report, Jaguar registered just 49 cars in Europe during the entire month of April. Guys, that's down 97.5% compared to last year.
The CEO resigned. Elon Musk's forward tweet, "Do you sell cars?" went viral. This wasn't a design failure. It was a $97 million collapse in perception. And it all started with one ad, and a brand that thought it could delete its past. November 19th, 2024. Half a minute, no cars, no heritage, no break on abstraction. The commercial opens in silence. A young man steps into a futuristic elevator dressed in bright orange safety gear. He doesn't look at the camera, he looks through it, like a performance artist in a museum. In his hand, a hammer. Across his back, splashes of paint. Glitchy synth music fades in. Then a woman with a buzz cut, standing on a staircase made of pink blocks. She paints a wall with neon green. Her expression, severe. On the screen, break molds, live vivid. Next, a man in a dress. Then more models. Some smile, most stare straight ahead. Everyone moves slowly, deliberately, as if wading through syrup. Everything is geometric, cold, polished, artistic. But nowhere does a car appear. Nowhere do you hear the familiar sound of a Jaguar engine. No V8 roar, no close-up of leather interiors, no movement across asphalt. No performance, no prestige, no past. And then, the climax, a new logo. Not the iconic leaping cat, but just a Jaguar. With a big G and a big U, supposedly for visual harmony. For anyone still hoping Jaguar would honor its heritage, this was the answer. Critics rubbed their eyes. Was this satire? A fashion show? A perfume commercial? Even the most progressive branding experts fell silent. Because this wasn't repositioning. This was a full reset, no context, no cars, and no soul. And worse, Jaguar had erased everything to get here. Right before the launch, they deleted their entire social media history. Everything. Years of photos, campaigns, comments, memories, gone with a single press of delete. It didn't feel like reinvention. It felt like betrayal. The reactions didn't build slowly. They fell like an avalanche, harsh, broad, and unstoppable. Conservative commentators immediately drew comparisons to Bud Light, a brand losing its core audience through a progressive campaign. Andrew Tate, gay. Tristan Tate, embarrassing. Nigel Farage, commercial suicide in real time. Robbie Starbuck, I want to sell my Jaguar, and I don't even own one. 13,000 likes. 13,000 people eager to distance themselves from a brand they were never part of. But the biggest blow came from a man who needs no advertising, Elon Musk. 4 words. Do you sell cars? On X, formerly Twitter, his post became a trending topic within minutes. Not as a debate, as a verdict. Musk, with 160 million followers, and as CEO of their direct competitor Tesla, reduced Jaguar's entire campaign to one sarcastic question. The effect was deadly. Influencers picked it up. Meme pages edited the models with honk sounds and flashing text. TikTok users made parodies of people hiding their Jaguar keys out of shame. But it didn't stop at jokes. Dealers started getting calls. Not for test drives, for cancellations. Loyal customers, mostly 50 plus, were baffled. Why aren't you promoting cars anymore? Is Jaguar bankrupt? What is this gender campaign? A dealer in Stuttgart told AutoBuild anonymously, "This isn't backlash. This is desertion. People are abandoning us en masse." And then came the real shock. This campaign wasn't leaked, botched, or misinterpreted. This was the plan. According to managing director Rawdon Glover, this was the start of a new identity, exuberant modernism. A concept that throws traditional British elegance overboard for something new. Loud, digital, genderless. But that radical vision landed nowhere, because you can redesign a brand, But you cannot reprogram your customer. And customers had already reached their verdict. If you want to delete everything, then we delete our loyalty. July 2025, a Jaguar dealer in Munich removes the sign from the building. It wasn't a temporary closure, not a renovation. It was the end. In April of that same year, the dealership sold 0 cars, and they weren't alone. Across Europe, Jaguar sales collapsed from nearly 2,000 cars in April 2024 onto just 49 a year later. No typo, no rounding. From thousands to dozens, what was once a premium brand with loyal enthusiasts became in less than a year a name people whispered with embarrassment, a brand even dealers wanted to distance themselves from. But this wasn't an isolated crash. Globally, Jaguar collapsed like a house of cards. In 2022, they sold 62,000 cars. 2 years later, barely 13,000, a drop of more than 79%. In the United States, once one of their strongest markets, dealers saw sales fall 80% from the 2017 peak. From hundreds of cars per year to maybe one a month. Showrooms became still. Salespeople waited for customers who never came. The only movement was the automatic sliding door. Open, close, empty. And yet, the parent company, Jaguar Land Rover, was busy celebrating a record year. 1.8 billion pounds in profit, their highest ever. How? Land Rover, Jaguar's rugged sibling, continued to thrive. 58,000 Range Rovers sold. 28,000 Defenders. Stable, profitable, untouched. The contrast was painful. One half of the company was running at full speed. The other, Jaguar, was completely stalled. But here comes the twist. All of this was intentional. Not a crash, not a mistake. This was the plan. They called it a fire break. A total production shutdown starting December 2024. Every model disappeared. The F-Type, I-Pace, XE, XF, E-Pace, all out of production. No inventory, no new cars, no deliveries. Why? To make room for a new identity. Jaguar no longer wanted to be a premium brand. They aimed for the ultra-luxury segment. No more competing with BMW or Audi, but with Bentley, Rolls-Royce. Managing director Rawdon Glover made it clear, we must place our brand at a completely different price level. If we keep playing like everyone else, we drown. The new strategy was exclusivity. Fewer cars, higher margins. Not mass, but mystique. Cars above 100,000 pounds. Sharper, pricier, fully electric. On paper, it sounded smart. Abandon the sinking ship and rebuild on the other side of the ocean. But on the streets, it didn't work. The classic Jaguar customer felt betrayed. They didn't see evolution, they saw abandonment. The brand they knew, British elegance, speed, pride, suddenly no longer existed. Meanwhile, the new target audience was nowhere to be found. Young, wealthy buyers who preferred Tesla, Lucid, or Porsche weren't impressed by pink blocks and cryptic slogans. They wanted innovation, not an identity crisis. And so the house of cards collapsed. Marketing journalist Rory Sutherland warned back in 2022, Jaguar cannot survive on people who love the brand but never buy. But that was exactly what they were betting on, that outsiders would storm in. Instead, the last people still inside walked out. What made it even more tragic? The market had room. Mercedes went all in on electric performance. BMW blended classic design with modern engineering. Toyota dominated with smart hybrids. Even Bentley and Aston Martin kept their brand values and continued selling. Everyone was building a bridge to the future. Jaguar? They burned their own. And so the numbers didn't merely follow. They confirmed what customers had felt for months. This brand was no longer theirs. This brand no longer knew what it was. And no one wanted to wait for what might, someday, return. What began as a bold strategy turned into a slow-motion eulogy. Next chapter, the creative catastrophe. How do you sell a car? Without a car? We dive into the campaign itself, the bizarre visuals, and why exuberant modernism made the internet erupt. July 31st, 2025. After 35 years of service, CEO Adrian Mardell announces his departure. Officially, it was a well-deserved retirement. But no one believed that. Not the media, not the markets, and certainly not the people who had once carried Jaguar on their shoulders. Mardell wasn't an outsider, he was Jaguar. He started as a financial analyst and climbed all the way to the top. A man who had guided the brand through recessions, mergers, and pandemics. But in the summer of 2025, he could only say one thing.
I'm done. Not because the job was finished, but because the job and the brand had slipped out of his hands.
4 days after his announcement, the storm hit. Donald Trump, then a presidential candidate,
Posted a scathing message on Truth Social.
Jaguar made a stupid, woke commercial. Total disaster. The CEO just disgracefully stepped down. Who would want to buy a Jaguar after seeing that ridiculous ad?
The post went viral.
Fox News picked it up. Conservative influencers swarmed it like sharks to blood. And then came the comparison to Bud Light. The same pattern. A classic name, a bold campaign, a backlash that cost billions. The same criticism repeated over and over. You're not listening to your customers. You're ashamed of who you were. You're trying to become something nobody asked for. The irony? Mardell's achievements were undeniable. He had led Jaguar Land Rover to its highest profit in a decade, 1.8 billion pounds. He had cut debt in half, by 5 billion. On paper, he delivered. But that was exactly the problem. It wasn't about paper anymore. Not about numbers, it was about identity. And that identity had vanished. Mardell's exit wasn't a resignation, it was an escape. He was replaced by P.B. Balaji, the first Indian CEO of the British brand. But the timing said it all. Accenture Song, the agency behind the disastrous campaign, had already been fired in May, despite a contract running until 2026. The search for a new agency began while the ruins were still smoking, and there stood Jaguar, without cars, without customers, without a leader, without direction. What was once an icon was now a case study, a brand that tried to erase its past and lost its future along the way. The real lesson? This was never about politics.
Not about woke or conservative.
It was about something far more fundamental: trust. You cannot build loyalty by ignoring the customers you already have. You cannot win new love by betraying the old. And you cannot honor a legacy by wiping it away. Jaguar believed it could enter a new world
by abandoning the old one. But they forgot what people truly buy.
Not just speed, not just design, but meaning, desire, trust. The brand had always been built on pride, but in the end, it was that same pride that made the fall inevitable.
A pride that forgot to listen,
that grew ashamed of its own story, and thought that silence and pink blocks could sell the future. But here's the twist. Reinvention doesn't have to mean self-destruction. Take Volvo. Once known mainly for boxy shapes and crash safety, the Swedish brand faced a similar crossroads. The world was going electric. Younger buyers wanted style, sustainability, and smart tech. So Volvo made a choice. Not to delete its DNA, but to evolve it. Instead of burning its history, it reframed it. Safety became sustainability, boxy became bold, and heritage became an asset, not a burden. The result? A sleek Scandinavian design language, fully electric models that still whispered Volvo in every detail. And global sales that didn't collapse, they climbed. By 2025, Volvo had positioned itself as the Tesla for people who don't want to look like they're trying too hard. Calm, clean, confident, no pink blocks, no performative slogans, just continuity, upgraded. That's the real tragedy of Jaguar's fall.
It wasn't the ambition that failed.
It was the amnesia. They could have built a bridge between elegance and innovation. Instead, they blew it up. Because reinvention without recognition
isn't reinvention at all.
It's erasure. And the market responded the only way it knows how. With silence.
In the next and final chapter, we return to the core.
What does this entire collapse teach us about brands, people, and misunderstanding? October 2025. The factories are silent, the showroom's empty, the website barely visited. In the first quarter, Jaguar reports a loss of 79 billion yen,
roughly $534 million.
The brand is underwater, not because of a single bad decision, but because of a pattern of denial. And the consequences are brutal. 20,000 layoffs worldwide, a debt load of $50 billion, and according to Macro Axis, a 100% probability of bankruptcy. How did it come to this? Not because of bad engineering,
not because of competition,
and not even because of that pink commercial, but because of something much deeper: pride.
In Japan, they call it Kao o Tataru,
saving face.
In the West, we call it legacy.
In business, We call it brand equity, but beneath every label lies the same risk.
Being so proud of who you were
That you refuse to admit who you've become. While Jaguar retreated into abstract art and cryptic slogans, others chose consistency. Toyota? No revolution, no pink blocks. Just a steady strategic path toward hybrids. Today, those hybrids make up more than 50% of their sales. And in 2025, the company posted a record $30 billion in profit.
no hysteria,
No drama, just listening, adapting, delivering. The real contrast is this. Toyota built trust. Jaguar built image. One grew alongside its customers. The other ran away from them. And so, this isn't a story about marketing, or even about cars. This is a story about companies trying to erase their own past, in the hope of a future that never arrives. A story about what happens when identity becomes a barrier, instead of a foundation.
in the end,
Jaguar didn't die because of a bad campaign. It died because it believed elegance was outdated, that history was a burden,
and that customers didn't have memories.
They forgot that you don't sell luxury. You sell a dream, and you cannot rewrite that dream without first understanding why people dreamed it in the first place.
Next video,
How Toyota won $300 billion by not radicalizing. A masterclass in strategy, timing, and listening to your customer. Make sure you don't miss that one.